Been a little while since I did any of that, so I figured why not work on that, work on trying to keep the hands up. Why not try to do some of the stuff that you used to be able to do, whether it's ride a skateboard or surf, ride a bike. Why not try to do some of those things if you already know how to do them? I want to keep them as you get older. Kind of fun. I used to box a lot and I always liked the sport. So why not keep some of the ability? It's nice rotational work too. Really learn how to use your hips and learn how to throw some good shots. The arms are just kind of connected to the hips when you throw them. So I don't really have to even punch the bag and just kind of slap, and I'm still using my hip, still doing a lot of the David Weck stuff. Look at how much head over foot you get from going here, here to here, here to here, here to here. You get in these different columns. You keep going back and forth, and you get some internal rotation here. Do that back foot, some external rotation on the front leg. You get kind of a bow in the front corner in the back, and then you're here. Now you're loaded to throw another punch. You're already set, you're kind of preset. And for me, I have some tightness in this hip, so when I go to this side, it doesn't feel as set and as strong as when I come to this side. This side, I can wind up a lot stronger, the hip's more free. I can throw a bigger shot from that side. This side is a little harder. Those left hooks, I have to kind of almost jump and throw a left hook. Right hook feels solid. I don't even need to put much behind it for this to be powerful. It's like the turn over here doesn't feel like I'm even throwing it hard at all. But I know for a fact, I've used this before, I know for a fact that knocks somebody out pretty good. The left is shakier, harder for me to turn over, so sometimes I'll kind of jump when I throw that shot. Fun too, just to throw punches in bunches, try to hit the same spot. We keep trying to hit the FU on here. Try to roll the hips, hip, get the hands back to the face. Try to stay on the toes. And there's a warm-up. What I'm hoping to get out of that, a little bit of conditioning, which would be nice. So I'm going to try to do it almost every time I come in here. I guess I'll just commit and say I'm going to do it every time I come in here, which I'm here at Super Training 4 or 5 days a week at least. So I'll do like a round or two every time I come in. I'm looking for, be nice, get a little bone density, get the knuckles used to that contact again. Obviously getting a little bit better conditioning, and the main thing I want to get from it is more athleticism and be able to really flow and move the hips around a lot better, especially for some of the running that I'm doing, sprinting, all these things that you're kind of spinning up this energy where you're trying to get a lot of internal and external rotation from the legs, from the shoulders. These are the new raw sleeves right here. These are the raw knee sleeves. Chuck these guys on, just a small amount of protection while I'm doing some of my lifts for today. Nowadays, with all the running and stuff that I'm doing, my leg workouts include a lot of other stuff. So I'm gonna do probably anywhere between 1 to 3 leg movements, and then I'll probably move on, or maybe in between do some other exercises. Fits perfect. The raw sleeves, what makes them different is that they're nice and stretchy, super easy to get on. very comfortable. I think aesthetically they look really nice. And on top of that, you still get to see the gains that you have in the legs because the sleeve's not so long. The elbow sleeve's the same. It's not going to cover up the whole bicep and whole tricep. In comparison to like a good, really heavy duty powerlifting sleeve, like the strong sleeves that we have, this is just like one tug up the legs as opposed to really trying to wrench them and have your training partner help you get in them and everything. But in terms of leg training for me nowadays, with the mileage I'm getting from running, I'll probably specifically train the legs maybe about one time per week. I would say they get worked a little bit on a couple other days where I might drag the sled and do some, I guess, like indirect or incidental leg work, I guess I would call it. But for today, I'm going to put a little bit more of a focus on the legs. And I like to have some other movements going on in between. So I'll probably do maybe some shoulders, maybe some curls or something in between. And that way, if I do end up being excited, if I do end up working out for an hour, it's really like, 20 minutes or so spent on legs. I'm not overdoing it because all the mileage I'm putting on. All right, we got this new slant board. I'm going to be testing it out. It's got some bands on it as well. So I'm going to kind of hold on to the bands and just do some slant board work. Some of the stuff that I'm trying to work on nowadays is I'm trying to work on better quality in some of the movements that I'm doing. And I'm also looking for further range of motion. So rather than just always lifting more and more and more weight, I'm also looking to improve my movement of the particular motion. So in this case, we have a slant board, and you may have seen people, Olympic lifters and so forth, utilizing shoes that have an elevated heel. This is a similar principle. This raises the heel up, and it makes the range of motion in the squat a little easier. A lot of times when I go to do a squat, it's hard for me to get good range without my heels wanting to come off the ground, right? And so in this case, this gives me some support through the heel. And what I can do is I can kind of push back and I can force the knees out. And I can get into here and I can get my hips lower than my knees. And then return back up. And you can do these different ways. You can get down here more, where I like to squat down here a lot more and really try to force the knees out and get this range going. Sometimes I'll do it with a weight in hand, or you can do it full elevation where you're way up here. You can do it with the feet slightly turned out. Kind of up to you on how you feel and how you like to squat. The main thing is to keep that pressure in the whole foot. So you don't necessarily want the toes coming up while you're squatting, and you don't necessarily want to, even though my heel is elevated, I still don't want to have my heels come off the board, which can sometimes happen. So try to find something comfortable and try to find a spot where once you lock in a particular spot where you're not moving around much. That's why I like to have my feet slightly off the board. I found that when my feet are here, I tend to be able to keep them there the whole time. Force the knees out and drop into it. When I have a weight, the weight out acts as like a little bit of a counterbalance. It makes the lift even more smooth. So I'll show you what it looks like with a weight. Hello. Mm-hmm. So with a little bit of weight in my hands, it allows me to get down a little deeper, and I like to pause these down at the bottom because this isn't uncomfortable for me, but my It's like foreign to me to get down this low. My body doesn't really love this. So I like to pause there for a handful of seconds. It's really challenging too, is to try to stop at some different spots. Some hybrid training has been doing me some good. Getting a lot of running. Today I went out for like a long walk, probably walked for about 45 minutes, and then ended up turning that into like a walk jog that probably lasted 20-30 minutes, and then ended up just jogging straight for about an hour. So I think I got in about 8 miles or so, and I don't always have time to do this, but this felt really good today. I was able to go home, eat some steak with a Japanese sweet potato and some G. Hughes teriyaki sauce, a whole bunch of water, a whole bunch of hydration electrolytes from Within You brand. Guzzled all that down, then came here, and now I'm training, getting some lifting in. It feels good. I'm throwing some raises, lateral and front raises as well. Shoulder hack right here is to do lateral and front raises with these guys, because a lot of times the grip, you start to feel your grip when you're doing lateral raises. Another thing you could do when you do lateral raises is simply just use some sort of lifting straps. Might be a good idea. And some people would be like, well, why are your hands getting tired when you're only using 20 reps? Well, the nature of the exercise is just a little weird on the grip, but then in addition to that, you're just usually doing kind of high reps. And so in this case, I have my hands inside the handle, so I don't have to worry about the grip at all. But I always like these seated laterals for a couple of reasons. One is my body is in the way, and so I can't, when I'm up here, I get to go here where there's really not much tension. And when your body's in its own way, you have to stop here. So I like that factor. I also like the factor that you can still get a little momentum if you need to. And I like to, some people are like, well, it's a lateral raise, you should really come out to the side. I don't disagree with that, but I like to do these a little bit where I guess my hands are coming out more like above my thighs rather than in line with maybe like my ears, I guess you'd say. So my arms are more out in front of me. Just lightly touch the hips and turn back up and bring it up over the hat. I can kind of think about my running as I'm doing this exercise. I can go head over the foot on each side. See how I'm bringing my head towards the side being worked as I'm going here. For no other reason than just to get more movement into the exercise. Try to get that resistance on the way down, catch it. Whew. Yikes. So this exercise again, try it holding on to this band. So our buddy, Slant board guy, he set these up with some bands in them. And you know, you guys, the customers, are always the best at coming up with ideas on how to use these. So this is one way to do it. We simply just took the band, which that band down there looks just like this band down right here, except for this one's thicker and this one's more resistance. We just tucked it underneath the slant board and hooked it to those handy dandy hooks they have there. And what you're going to see is that there's going to be hardly any tension at the bottom. which is kind of nice because the bottom of this exercise is right where, for some folks, it's going to kind of bother their knee. But again, there's no extra weight at the bottom. It's only as you come up, the band tension will jump on you. You can see here, kind of almost in like a deadlift position here if the hips are high, right? So you can deadlift it a bit, which also feels pretty good on the ham hockers. Get some hip extension, get the booty in there. That's pretty substantial. I'm gonna say that's an extra 50, 60 pounds at the top. That's pretty well done. That's a good amount of weight. So now as I squat, I think it's kind of nice about having this in hand. I can really try to be super strict on where I dump this weight. If I keep staying in here and keep staying in the quads, it's really difficult. As you get to the bottom, you can see that tension comes off. And so I'll have to kind of reverse out of there. Come down here a little bit. And as long as I'm standing on the board, we're safe. Like as long as the majority of my feet are on the board's not going to come up. But you do have to keep in mind you are holding onto the bands, and you'll rip the board off the ground. Holy hell. I felt pretty substantial to do that with that band setup like that. I think we can even, if you wanted to, you can even kind of take it out of there, hook it to here, and now you're going to get even more band tension if you have it. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I didn't go in there. Let me redo that. So if you want less band tension, you might be best off with moving this into here, where these are now closer together, and you do the same thing on this side. Move these closer together, and now you have a little less band tension. You want more band tension, and you would keep it out here, because now we're taking up more band resistance, and so the band is stretched out more that way. Yo, that burns like crazy. I think when it comes to unilateral work, single leg work, we're thinking that it's single leg work. Single leg work is actually double leg work, because one leg's just getting worked from a different angle. So the focus is on this front leg, and that's where you'll feel a lot of the tension, but the back leg's getting worked like crazy too. This kind of stuff hurts. You can always go here, soften the blow a little bit. You can also always hold on to something. Just because you're managing your balance or holding on to something doesn't make you limp. Actually, just be really smart. Now we go forward, stay on the toes on both legs. I like to try to have this knee kind of go out. I'm trying to go here and go straight down as best I can. For all you runners out there, I think a small amount of strength training, you can see these movements are even done without any weight. A small amount of strength training can go a long way. You're trying to manage your body being on kind of one foot at a time. And so some of these exercises in the gym can really help build a lot of resilience. I haven't been running for that long, but I've been able to run consistently without any issues, without any problems, and it's probably, you know, I got to contribute some of that to powerlifting and the bone density that powerlifting has helped me build, the strength in the ligaments and tendons, especially when you're starting to go under 5 rep maxes, as I did for many decades. Leg training can really can be very intense. So I like to spread out the fatigue over a period of time. So while I am focused on legs a little bit more so today, I'm also doing other movements in between. Another way of looking at this is just to not have a split. And one of the reasons why I might urge you and encourage you to not have a split is that you can train full body with each training session that you do. And again, you'd be spreading the fatigue out. So that way, when you go to run tomorrow, right here, your pecs, your shoulders and stuff aren't so sore because you did 15 sets of chest. Maybe you did 6 sets of chest, 3 sets of triceps, 3 sets of biceps, and maybe you walk with the sled a little bit. That's more of a hybrid workout because now we spread the fatigue out. That day is not gonna, you're not gonna shoot yourself in the foot so bad that you blow your whole foot off. You're instead doing a workout that is a little bit more cerebral and has a little bit more intent and is less likely to really jack you up. Been thinking about a lot of different kind of styles of training, and I've had some different thoughts over the last couple months and weeks and years, even being more removed from powerlifting. Thinking of like the utility and the usefulness of still doing like 3 reps on something. So we just, for some reason, I don't think it's like, it's not typical to do like a 3 rep or 5 rep max of something, say like a lateral raise. But I don't see anything wrong with trying to grab a little heavier weight as long as you don't think there's gonna be any risk, any harm. So now I'm gonna like totally cheat this movement, but I'm gonna grab this 40, and now the mindset to do this is a little different than hanging in there for a set of 20. It's like 2-3 reps, do them the best you can, then you're gonna hand off and do the same thing on the other side. So you grab this guy here, and now we go. That felt good. I'll do 2 more. 4. So I think kind of the old powerlifting mindset and maybe bodybuilding mindset was, hey, look, if you can't do that movement, like this, then there's no point in doing it. Well, now the thought process is, I want my whole body to move better, and I want to be more free. And the way for most of us to have athletic freedom and fitness freedom is going to be through our spine and through our hips. So my hips, we'll save that for a rainy day. I'll have to work on that some other time, but to get a little bit of spine motion going in here, you know, if I'm staying here and being real rigid with this, well, I would have to have another discipline on top of lifting weights that would allow me to really move my spine around the way that I need to. I need to get a lower shoulder, a higher shoulder. I also need to be able to rotate. So rotation, being able to side bend, you know, do all this, being able to hip hinge, right? So as freaky as it can look, I then ask you the question of, is this okay to take this weight here and to go like this with it? I mean, I'm starting to get, this shoulder is lower than this shoulder. So I got a little bit of a twist in here. I'm getting a little bit of a side bend as I go to come up here. I'm swinging through with the hips. And it might not be the best isolation shoulder exercise ever invented, but is it starting to work the whole body? And what if we tone it down a little bit from that weight and we say, okay, well, that was maybe getting a little too sketch. What if we work with a 30? And what if we get some nice ranges and we start to really move around, start to really open up the shoulder? There, I ask you again, is this exercise a winner or is this exercise a loser? It's hard to tell, right? Like if you saw someone doing it, you might say, I don't know what the fuck that guy's doing. You might want to bash his head in because you're like, that guy's an idiot. But who knows? Maybe there's some utility in this extra movement. Again, I think it falls in that category of once we know the rules, now we can start to break them. I know a lot of the rules of training, and maybe because of that, occasionally I can say, well, I'm going to try this, try something a little different, a little bit new. But I'm really enjoying being able to have my spine move around a lot better than it was. I would say for some of you, that feeling that you have 2 or 3 days post leg day, that stiffness in the spine when you first wake up, and like if you even move your neck, you feel all the way from your ears all the way down into your heels, where you're like, man, my whole body is just so tight. I can still feel that here and there because I spent decades powerlifting and I got under some heavy ass weights, but almost all of that is gone. And by midday, I certainly don't feel that way anymore. By midday, I feel good. I feel like I can really get into these positions I wasn't able to get into before. You hear David Weck talk about coiling a lot. And a coil, a really good coil, is not just from the lat, but it's also from the hip, where we're taking this whole region here and we're really shortening it up. And we're not only getting a little bit of lat in here, but we're going to twist and really hike the hip up to where this side over here is longer, okay, and this side over here is shortened drastically. And that's what we're trying to get into. For me, it's still hard because this side, all this is still so tight through here. As I go to raise up here, nothing hurts on this side, this lower side, but it's this side, the raising up, that starts to feel sketch through the hip and through all those muscles. But as I get better at this, I believe my athleticism is going to improve quite a bit, because I'll be able to generate more force. I'll be able to kind of spin up energy a lot easier, and then being able to go to the other side. So if I was to try this in the morning, body's still pretty stiff in the morning sometimes. It takes me a while to be able to get into this. But these motions that you're seeing people do on the internet, you're seeing people do this and you're like, is this guy gonna shoot a fucking fireball at me, or what's he trying to do? These weird ranges that people are trying to do, a lot of it is based off of being able to close one side off and open up the other side. Probably doesn't look like anything. You're watching me do it and you're like, he lost his mind. I don't understand. I don't understand what he's doing. But if we take a look at the back as I'm doing the motion, oh, you'll be able to see some of it. Whoa. Better wring that bad boy out. So, as I go to move into some of these positions, you know, if I'm just standing right here, and now I'm trying to close off that one side, I'm trying just to move the shoulder this way. Move it, move it, move it. Now I feel a little tightness through here. I feel a little tightness through the front. Now what if I actually start to engage the lat, pull the lat into place, pull the lat down and in, and flex my oblique. Flex my oblique to pull myself into a position. Now I can turn these positions into positions of strength and power. And now this could actually be a workout. I could actually just sit here and go how much can you lean and tilt to a side? How quickly can you kind of get into these ranges of motion? You'll notice this is very common among sprinters, that especially in the acceleration phase, their feet are going wide in the beginning, but their head is also going over their foot with every single step that they take as they come out of those blocks, and they're really low. They're way down in here or even lower. once they straighten up, they're still doing this. They're still making these, as Weck would call them, these kind of figure eights. So you take your hand and rather than just pull your elbow down, actually do like a lat pull down. So pull with the lat, pull with the elbow, maybe pull even a little bit with the bicep. And as you get down in here, we're not just gonna pull with the lat, but we're gonna move the shoulder downward. See how that shoulder comes down, this shoulder comes up? And now we're here. Now we're kind of right back in some of these positions again. And if you take, you know, one of these guys, you get into some of this kind of flowy stuff where you're moving the stuff around. You're gonna find yourself in some of those same patterns: shoulder low, shoulder high, shoulder low, shoulder high. I'm not the best at some of these things, but working on it. I feel a small, very small twinge on this left side. So now I can kind of address some of that. Why am I feeling that? Probably because the front is tight. So I can wind that out. I can wring that out. You can try some different, nothing's long. There's no really long movements with some of this. You just want to make sure that you don't hurt yourself as you're doing it. But just move stuff around. Just kind of do what calls to you. You can kind of mess around with a lot of different movements like that. There's different weights of these things. This one's an even lighter one, where you get that centrifugal force of this going back, and it's kind of helping the pec get into a range of motion that you otherwise would have a hard time doing. It can really help you to get more athleticism in terms of running or throwing. You got to think throwing a punch, throwing a football. Like so many of these things are very similar. We're trying to generate some rotational power, and we're trying to get some internal and external rotation from the upper and lower body simultaneously. And that's a lot of what running is. This right here is called rope flow. Really easy to do. You can get a hold of any rope, any jump rope, but this one is from David Weck if you want to pick up something in particular. And now just make some crosses with this, back and forth. David calls them figure eights. And I don't know, maybe pretend your hands are like together. Pretend your hands are sort of tied together. And then see if you can go like, you can go elbow up, shoulder down, shoulder up, shoulder down, shoulder up, elbow up, shoulder down, elbow down. As you go to throw a pitch, there's going to be a elbow, elbow up, elbow down, right? Shoulder up, shoulder down. This stuff has been around us forever. We haven't really recognized it much. And as you get older and you stop throwing and stop doing things, we start to lose it. So I'll do this as slow as I can so you can kind of follow along. Your hands can be separated if you need them to be, but if you pretend your hands are kind of tied together and you're just sort of rubbing your thumbs together. See how my thumbs are facing each other? I got like a lightsaber. Right? And now I can also go head over foot, bring my head into this equation, because now we're getting the spine moving around. You also can get the feedback of the rope hitting the ground. Hear the rope? Just slightly tapping the ground. It doesn't tap the ground, it means you got to get a little lower, use your knees. Now, if I'm just standing here without the rope, I look like a complete lunatic, right? So I go back to this. An object gives you something to kind of twirl around and work around. What I'd like people to think about when they try stuff like this is that there's really no wrong or right way. So just pick it up and just, like, what would a little kid do with this? A little kid would try to hit his brother with it, right? And then he would just probably mess around, like, right? Swing it a bunch. There's nothing wrong with any of these movements that you want to try. These are all healthy movements. If the rope hits us, as long as this hit us in the, we're going to be okay. But even if it does clip you a little bit, it's not going to hurt. And you can just get used to kind of some of this. You don't even have to have the other arm involved at all. And you just take some steps. As easy as this looks, when you first go to try this, it's going to feel weird. Backwards. Missed a step. Now I'm all screwed up. There we go. There's no wrong or right way. You know, fighting with a sword and twirling the sword at somebody. Switch to the other side. You know, what if we just want to kind of go like this and pretend we're jumping it? I'm not actually jumping it. It's okay. What if I'm 70, right? What if I'm 70 and I'm on my calves? I'm trying to time my, just trying to get into some sort of rhythm with the rope. Try to listen to it. What you're really after is this click of the rope. You want a lot of side bending. When I was training when I was a young kid with boxing, I got trained by Kevin Rooney, Mike Tyson's trainer, and we did a lot of side bending. And if you remember, Tyson famously side bended his way to being the youngest heavyweight champion of all time because he could slip a punch so easily. He was always moving his head. And this is some of what that looked like because there was a lot of side bending involved. And I remember the sides of my body just killed me after I'd leave practice. Let's say with each workout, I like to get in a little bit of side bending. The kind of sagittal plane stuff, that's going to be taken care of by all the lifting that I do, so I don't ever have to like really overthink that.